Assassin's Creed is a franchise many shun, love, hell, even both. So I ask myself this question often. Why do I keep coming back to it? Playing these older games, following the franchise, knowing they eventually fail to lead to anything satisfying. Seeing the mechanics evolve over time, reinventing the wheel over and over till these mechanics are barebone, inauthentic to what was once such iconic features of the franchise. I guess the real reason I keep coming back is knowing these games have never reached their full potential. Even the games people consider the best have their shortcomings they don't want to admit. Mirage is supposed to be the promise of iconic and meaningful features of the franchise taking center stage. Stealth, parkour, a story with a love letter to the classics? But how deep does it actually go? Is it really all what the title says to be? Or is there something more underneath the surface? That question is asked by the main character himself, Basim. A Ginny haunts him, not knowing what it wants, but it keeps leaving a mark on him. The only person he trusts with this knowledge is his street thief partner, Nihal. Early on is established the differing views they have on the world. Basim accepting contracts from the Hidden Ones gets disapproval from Nihal, saying it isn't enough for survival, while Basim believes he can be something more, and the Hidden Ones can provide that. He believes in what they stand for, he resonates with it. This desire to be a part of the Hidden Ones is what pushes and challenges their relationship. Either way, it's just incredibly refreshing to play as a character who wants to be part of the Assassin's Brotherhood.
I can do more.
Two of my best men died in this pursuit. I doubt a street thief would fare much better.
Then let me join you. You have two openings.
And the game actually doing something meaningful with that. When Basim is first recruited in the Brotherhood, we are training in Alamut. And if you're really familiar with the franchise, you'll know what significance this place holds. We haven't had a base of operations to this scale like this since AC1. And as a fan of that game, it just gives a nice feeling of being home. Seeing the Hidden Ones training, interacting with Basim, and so on, it's just really nice. Adds on to the presentation of being an assassin. Here, Basim learns combat, a bit of parkour, and other minor gameplay elements, leading into one of the highlights of the game. The training montage, such a strong presentation visually. With the track itself, Daughter of No One, working really well here in enhancing this section. And by the end, Basim shows finesse in combat, is able to connect with Enkidu, the eagle, and doing the leap of faith successfully. A really simple but effective way of showcasing character progression. Finally, the day has come where we are donned new robes, and fully become initiated in the Brotherhood. This scene is also so beautifully done, albeit loses points for using Ezio's family, but the voice work is nothing short of phenomenal. Lee Majdal's voice progression throughout the initiation is a standout here.
Ibn Ishaq, are you ready to leave your life behind and walk the path of shadows?
I am.
Are you ready to give up who you once thought you were? Ready to sacrifice everything you held close?
I am.
Everything in the intro culminates to a title drop that genuinely feels earned. For Basim, it's back home, but for me as a player, it's back to the Assassin's Creed that made this franchise special.
Such familiar sights. Greetings once again, Baghdad. Show me what I have missed.
You are free to explore Baghdad before starting the main questline, but won't get into exploration now as there are some mechanics in the game that hasn't been presented as of yet. You are directed to go to the first bureau established in Baghdad, and we are introduced to Mirage's quest system, or as it's called, investigation system, which is an involvement of what was in the previous RPG titles, but essentially the integral way of progressing through the story. At the start of each investigation, you go to a bureau, you are given clues and have to investigate to eventually resolve it or progress. As I said, it's an evolution of the RPGs, but it actually feels a lot better here, as navigating through Baghdad's environment is quite fun and interesting. Instead of having to go 1,000 meters on a horse and scour around specific areas like a crazy person, it just feels a lot more natural here, a lot more tighter and more meaningful. Like I said, the RPGs had this in their games, but it just felt like a side thing to do so you can complete the game, not that integral to the actual experience. You can definitely see the inspiration of AC1's investigations, but it isn't fully there, as it differs in a few ways and mostly good in my opinion, as it does utilize the RPG's elements of exploration. Firstly, I don't know why a lot of people don't praise this, but the game doesn't tell you where you need to go. You have to use the resources given to you and look and search on your own initiative to find locations and other points of interest. This was the same in the RPG games, but it feels a lot better here. See, a lot of people like to criticize Ubisoft for their open worlds and icons. And while yeah, Assassin's Creed is definitely a culprit of that, this game specifically isn't. Once you zoom in the map, yeah, you'll maybe see maybe more than 5 icons, but given the rather dense environment, it makes sense. And if that really triggers you, you have the ability to just turn it off. The game most definitely supports playing like that. But yes, Mirage's exploration philosophy is something I'll praise for a while, and I wish more games push the player to think and use the resources the way this game does when it comes to exploration. As a highlight for me in the way it does this is through the city design, meaning how the player can get around. It's been such a long time since I felt like getting from point A to B was an actual meaningful puzzle in Assassin's Creed. Baghdad really challenges the player on the rooftops. Getting into a restricted area, or getting to a different point of the city, is a thing you'll constantly be considering as you go throughout the game. Of course, you can just run through the streets, but you risk too much attention in some cases. The streets feel crowded and dense, and the game provides plenty of opportunities to go to the quiet and safety of the rooftops. Getting into the round city is also a fun and meaningful challenge. You can crowd blend through one gate, another you can find scaffolding to get past guards, or find opportunities along the walls. The game rewards the player for interacting with its levels and pathfinding. These things are challenged more with Mirage's notoriety system, which, oh my, it just blends so well with everything else. Yes, you can gain notoriety doing illegal actions at level 1, guards may notice you on the street, civilians who call you out and get the attention of guards, if you draw too much attention to yourself. Once again, pushing the player to the rooftops. Level 2, you have archers on those rooftops, giving the player more things to contend with when moving through the city rooftops. I adored the archer placements too, with the added fact that civilians will react to you killing people, not just on the ground but on the roofs. It gives a lot for the player to consider. Do I have to kill this guy, or can I use my tools to get away? It really rewards the skilled player for considering these, and I cannot get enough of this sort of thing. The final stage brings out a bounty hunter enemy type. Very reminiscent of what Origins had to offer, and yeah, they definitely pose a challenge, but very satisfying once you learn to utilize all the tools given to you. Continuing on with the investigation, this is where I want to talk about this game's stealth, as it was this early on in the game, this mission, where I felt rewarded for engaging with stealth, even with just using throwing knives, such a limited tool at my disposal. Once again, the urban environment supports this so much, giving the player more verticality, and in turn, more choices, and it evolves over time. Especially with the tools, and of course, Assassin's Focus. Call it a Shadow of War clone, call it unimmersive, but it's such a fantastic ability in the context of this game. The idea that Basim's actions are too fast to the point that Animus cannot recognize it isn't a new concept, and is in fact something we've seen in AC1.
Fast-forwarding memory to a more recent one.
And even with Basim's first kill in the Winter Palace, it shows that he doesn't have the best memory with specific actions. Is it times where it can feel cheap? Yeah. Can I use it whenever I want or how I want? Yeah. And so because of that, there's player initiative, making it feel rewarding. The skill gap for this ability is immense. There's a huge difference between players who use it as a simple multi-kill ability to those who use it in pathfinding. Just watch my gameplay and just the creative ways I do things. It's especially liberating in a system that really limits its movement potential. Saying that makes me realize I can't not talk about this game's parkour. Look, this is made by a smaller team. The game prior with this engine was designed to be a Viking game. I'm not going to grill on it as much as I could, but it's in the parkour where you can feel the shortcomings of Mirage. The game promotes these parkour highways, usually highlighted in gray tarp or marks for player to follow, and when utilized well, it can feel from being solid enough to actually kind of satisfying. There's ways to go off that beaten path for player expression, and that can feel good at times. But when you notice how Basim loses momentum when touching different grounds, then you notice how poorly integrated ejects are, then you realize how the parkour in this game doesn't evolve at all beyond just the fact that Basim is just faster. There's so many more little things I could grill into, but to say I was expecting for a deeper system from this game would be a lie, as it's really a shame, because if you put Altair in the city, he wouldn't have any problems, as AC1 has the best parkour in the franchise, obviously, not Unity.
Don't get tricked by flashy animations.
In Mirage, there's so many little things that unfortunately adds up. To Basim's lack of proper momentum, his inability to make jumps and do basic things that were possible in 2007. I say this with the utmost respect. But play Dying Light 2 if you want something to scratch that parkour itch. I've come to terms with that. At this point in the story, here is the next major stealth section, and introduces black box missions. There are a few of these presented earlier on in the game, but here there is a lot more variety of options and opportunities. You could go for a louder distraction, you can go for a distraction that allows you to infiltrate inside the prison's front gates,
Guards, if you would please displace yourselves.
or you can find a way up inside the prison on your own terms. It's up to you, the player, and it's actually really well done and integrated into the game. The level design in this mission, and honestly every single one of the game sections, have been great. Like I said, rewarding the player for engaging with tools, it's just great. Getting Alley, we are presented with a combat encounter. And yes, let's talk about combat, the game's biggest criticism. And if you know me, I love telling people they're wrong about combat. Let's get into it. The biggest complaint I've seen is that hits doesn't affect enemies. Well, they clearly are here, so I'm doing something right. What people don't realize is that using heavy attacks helps with opening up chances for enemies to be staggered. In fact, Basim has the ability to chain light and heavy attacks nicely. As Basim continues his combo, he does stagger the enemy with his basic attacks. I suppose the game should tutorialize these things, but it has been promoted plenty of times that Basim isn't a tank or the most skilled fighter. That is why using your tools is such an incredibly useful thing. I kinda like this combat more so than the Kenway games. As well, yes, it is cool to be able to chain attacks, but it just feels like eye candy more so than an actual engaging system. Any depth that combat had is very lost, as all you do is hold the attack button and parry. You'll get satisfying animations, but to me, I feel like combat should be more than just that. I see people tweeting Assassin's Creed 3 has such great combat, and all they post is just the counter animations. Which, I mean, more power to you, of course. And Mirage's combat rewards the player with engaging with his environment and its systems. A good throwing knife to the foot of an enemy knocks them down and sets them up for an insta-kill. Using traps can be a useful way to counter bigger enemy types. I can rave on and on about the tools in both stealth and combat. They work really well in both contexts, especially with how you can choose to mod these tools in different ways. They open up some really cool levels of creativity. Now, coming close to the first act of the game, we have the first target, Al Ghul. You would have been investigating this person for a while now. Everything you've learned as a player comes to play in this black box mission. Here, you're trying to find a way to lure the target out. You have the opportunities to blend, use stealth, find opportunities. And it's so satisfying to learn and master this level in particular. And in turn, making the final kill even more so satisfying. So yeah, that was the intro, and nothing else happens for this middle section of the game. For a lot of people, including myself to an certain extent, this was really disappointing aspect of the game, as the stealth and everything else, well, not entirely, never got old. It's just that there really isn't much to invest me into what it is I am doing. Yes, I'm finally being an assassin in an Assassin's Creed game, I mean, do you want me to clap? I mean, it's a shame, but if I have to, like... Bassam as a character doesn't evolve in this section. There isn't any side character worth really praise or that stands out. I mean, who gives a shit about Kong? And it's here where I'm left pondering and thinking, man, Assassin's Creed could really use a modern day, or just something beyond the fact that I am a assassin. No, don't shove history eye candy in my face or something. Assassin's Creed is a lot more about the Assassin and Templar conflicts. They explored them very deeply at its best. As during these specific instances, the player and the character are faced with morally ambiguous things to consider and face. Whether it be with its villains, or side characters, or things to challenge the character's view on things.
The human race calls out for direction. They want to know why they're here, what they're meant to do. Well, we're going to tell them. And once they understand how to live their lives, everything will be better.
Better how?
An end to all conflicts, large and small. Isn't that what you assassins strive for? Peace in all things?
I told you, I'm not an assassin.
Right.
I still don't see where I fit into things.
Bassam is struggling with nightmares, and throughout this portion of the game, he meets new characters, and the most you get to learn about them is through what? A dialogue select screen? Valhalla's best arcs had such memorable side characters and scenes, really making them stand out. This section of the game has some standout moments that I like, characters that intrigue me, but never fully captivate me as much as I would have liked, especially not enough to fully invest me. It's just even more frustrating as they had it. You have some interesting characters here, and you just do nothing? All these dialogue options could have made some good cutscenes or a way to serve as some downtime to help feel like Bassam actually has some sort of relation with these people. AC1 did this really well, with each Rafik in each city having a distinct relationship with Altair.
See you, and in one piece. You as well, friend. I am sorry for your troubles. Think nothing of it. A few of your brothers...
It is here I am once again reminded how often Assassin's Creed takes 3 steps forward and 1 to 2 steps back. I'll reiterate, I love this game very much for the Assassin's fantasy. In the gameplay sense, it delivers a lot for me. It's engaging enough throughout where I keep finding new things to appreciate, and I think that's great for any game. But beyond that, this game unfortunately doesn't do much, which I feel is the reason a lot of people were turned off from this game, thinking it's just another Assassin's Creed. But alas, the final hours of the game before the final target is where the narrative ideas really shine. Bassam is a lot more of an active character, taking initiative to try and resolve his nightmares, showing a lot more personality. It feels like this game has some proper direction. The sections are quite memorable, having interesting narrative scenarios, like Bassam having to get a disguise and use W-Riz to secure his way in.
Already?
No, I'm sorry, it has been a long...
That is all right, fair one. My face is quite forgettable. Unlike your own.
At this point, Bassam and his mentor Roshan's relationship is conflicted, as he starts to ask questions about Roshan's teachings and his own desire to understand himself and what more he could be. For those who haven't played the game, I won't spoil, but despite my issues with this game, Mirage's ending is up there with Revelations with me in terms of its endings. It features incredible voice work, and recontextualizes a lot of Bassam's actions leading up to it. There's other little things about the game that I appreciate. I like the world events, they are sparse but memorable, and feature some of that characterization I desire, like Bassam telling a kid to jump off the tower.
Do not overthink it. You simply need to have faith.
The side content that's the most notable is the contracts. I adore these. They feature unique scenarios and contexts that push the player to some extremes. My favorite is the trade delegate, as they'll acknowledge in notes and dialogue on how fast you do the missions. People say these contracts don't have storylines, when they actually do. You just have to read things, and there's some dialogue throughout these missions that further proves this, but you know, oh well. Gamers will play favorites and rush out reviews. That's fair. So, Assassin's Creed Mirage. Yes, the middle chunk of the game loses a lot of the heart it had in the beginning hours, but it really does have its heart in the right place. Successfully giving players the assassin fantasy in more ways than one. The level design is peak, set pieces are great, all very interesting and very engaging from a gameplay sense. However, I would have loved to see some of these things expanded upon and improved upon, but man, this game just makes me very happy when I play it. I understand the aspects as to why I adore it isn't the most appealing thing to the casual audience. The game doesn't rely a lot on spectacle or a lot of eye candy, I feel like. Assassin's Creed has something more than being a history game or a great parkour game or another open world game. And this game, at its core, wanted to be a Assassin's Creed game, not just being another Assassin's Creed game. Thank you for watching. Can't wait to talk about how Marvel Spider-Man 2 doesn't innovate. We'll see. We'll see how much that checks out, but we'll see.
Focus. Listen to the sound of my voice. Recognize that what you're seeing isn't real. Just a picture of the past. It can't hurt you.
Damn it. It's not working.
Give it a moment, Miss Stillman. He'll adjust. The first time is never easy.